We tried it before with a Rube Goldberg kind of scheme, this price cap on oil, which I wrote very early on, did not think it was going to be successful, and it isn't. This policy, however, does seem to have teeth. It does seem to be designed in the right way.
Well, since the move from President Trump, it's been reported from multiple trade sources that Chinese state oil majors have suspended purchases of seaborne Russian oil. The front page of the Times, this is tomorrow morning's Times, suggests that India has followed suit. Let's speak to Harry Broadman, former US Assistant Trade Representative and Chief of Staff of the President's Council of Economic Advisers under George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. Harry, welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me again.
Thank you. It sounds like things are happening. How do you assess this?
Well, they certainly do sound like they're happening, and it seems if Mr. Trump sticks to the agenda, and we know that sometimes he doesn't, that he's corralled other countries to join in this effort to ban purchases of oil from Russia. That could be a very effective strategy, again, if all other countries are on board and there's no cheating. And I should add, this might sound like a repeat show to others watching the U.S. trying to, prevent oil export revenue coming into Putin, we tried it before with a Rube Goldberg kind of scheme, this price cap on oil, which I wrote very early on, did not think it was going to be successful, and it isn't. This policy, however, does seem to have teeth. It does seem to be designed in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, President Trump has threatened secondary sanctions before. What is it about what he's done this week that has persuaded these Chinese and Indian majors to drastically reduce their imports of Russian oil?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure who knows the answer to that, but I think he, has applied some theorem of collective action, and persuaded both China and India, but also other G7 allies to engage in this. I don't know what the quote deal is behind the scenes that Mr. Trump may have made with India and China, but if this comes to pass, it's actually going to be something that I think really could put the screws onto Putin. Now, whether those screws become tight enough that he withdraws from Ukraine, that's another story, because this man, who unfortunately, when I was working in Russia, he had just come in, he's pretty tough. And we'll see, if the Russian economy implodes from this, and that's a big question, because, while, oil is obviously an incredibly important commodity for Russia's economy, there is leakage from this, and there are other things that, Mr. Putin could rely on in the meantime. But this is the best policy I've seen attacking Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine, and generally, frankly.
Right. I'm just looking at what the Times is reporting in tomorrow's morning's paper, although online you can get it now. And it tells us that India and China have been able to buy Russian oil at a discount and together account for about 80% of all Russia's crude exports. I mean, if they stick with this, what kind of impact could it have on Russia's economy and its ability to pay for its war?
Well, it could certainly make Russian economic growth much slower than it currently is, and to be frank, it's not very fast to begin with. I think one thing to be aware of is that Putin, behind the scenes, may try to offer discounts to Russia and India or others to say, I want to pay you off for abiding by the sanctions, but and what I'm going to do, therefore, is give you discounted prices on Russian oil. So the question is, how tight is this coalition of the willing to really surround Russia and ban export revenues coming into Putin and his war chest? That's a big if. So I think we're at a moment of celebration in some sense now, but let's see how this proceeds, because we've been here before, and again, all of this hinges on all potential buyers of Russian oil, to abide by these sanctions. And as I say, it's very different from the price cap that was initially in place under Mr. Biden. This one could actually have teeth if it's abided by, and Trump, mans the phones and really does persuade, China and India, who obviously are the largest purchasers of Russian oil. But Mr. Putin is a very deliberate fellow, and he will be working the phones himself. And so it will be intriguing to learn how it is that India and China have come on board, and will it be durable?
Yeah, and Harry, look at that line from Putin. You talked about deliberate. I mean, it's very deliberate. He said, this is an unfriendly act, and I quote him directly, that does nothing to strengthen Russian-American relations. And then he also said, no self-respecting country ever does anything under pressure. How do you think that will land with Team Trump?
I think you're sitting here in Washington, I can tell you, I can almost hear the chuckling in my home. I mean, the gall for him to say that. But listen, I understand that this is the way that he behaves. We should not be surprised at that, what he said. And, he's trying to rile Trump personally. And unfortunately, Trump does sometimes take the bait.
Yes.
And sometimes he puts it back and then takes it again in a different flavor. We've seen this up close and personal now on virtually every policy that Mr. Trump does. So I think the question is, how stiff a backbone does he have? And is that backbone stiffened by the Indians, by the EU, by the Chinese, and say, listen, let's get this done now.
Okay. Harry, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Harry Broadman, former US Assistant Trade Representative and Chief of Staff of the President's Council of Economic Advisers under George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton. Simon says, Putin is sounding defensive, Henry. Yes, I think so, Simon. And then Ian says, hi, Henry. For the US to take on Putin is finally actioning it. Putin's stubbornness, I think you mean he's finally sanctioning it. Putin's stubbornness is going to cost him a lot of money. Peace has no price. Peace is peace. Thank you very much indeed. And Dominic says Putin has a bloody cheek calling anyone unfriendly. Does he consider his illegal invasion of Ukraine an act brought about to express his deep compassion and love for the country? Thank you very much. We'll leave that one there, Dominic. It's Henry Bonsu on Times Radio.
It is 5%, the huge success in The Hague at the NATO summit. The fact that Europeans are also stepping up.
But that'll be a big one. We canceled the meeting with President Putin. It didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get, so I canceled it. But we'll do it in the future. But next week we'll be with many of you in those locations that I told you. Then it's back to Washington. So South Korea and Japan. In South Korea, I'll be meeting with President. Yeah, it's a good question. Today is a very big day in terms of what we're doing. Look, these are tremendous sanctions. These are very big. Those are against their two big oil companies. And we hope that they won't be on for long. We hope that the war will be settled. We just answered having to do with the various forms of missiles and everything else that we're looking at. But we don't think that's going to be necessary. We would like to see them just take the line that has been formed over quite a long period of time and go and let's, go home. Last week they had almost 8,000 soldiers killed. Many Russians were killed last week. Many Ukrainians were killed last week. We think it's ridiculous and would like to have it end.
Why do you think
Middle East. And Mark, as you know, we did the Middle East +7, so we did 7.
Push Putin to the
Well, I don't know that they will. I think that they'll certainly have an impact. They're massive sanctions. It's sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push, hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too. It takes two to tango, as they say, and we're going to find out. They hate each other. These two people hate each other. You know that better than anybody. And it makes it more difficult than it should be. Very good relationship, but that'll be a big one. We canceled the meeting with President Putin. I just felt it was time. We've waited a long time. I thought that we'd go long before the Middle East. And Mark, as you know, we did the Middle East +7, so we did 7 different wars from Pakistan and India to so many.
Azerbaijan, Armenia,
which
Africa.
they said was impossible to do. All these wars I did, and the one that we have left, we have one left. It'll be 9. We have one left, and I think we'll get that done too. I think we're on our way to getting it done.
We have to.
If we shot it, and we're not going to do that. But there is a tremendous, well, the problem with the Tomahawk that a lot of people don't know, it'll take a minimum of 6 months, usually a year, to learn how to use them. They're highly complex. So the only way a Tomahawk is going to be shot is if we shot it, and we're not going to do that. But there is a tremendous learning curve with the Tomahawk. It's a very powerful weapon, very accurate weapon, and maybe that's what makes it so complex. But it will take a year. It takes a year of intense training to learn how to use it. And we know how to use it, and we're not going to be teaching other people. It's too far out into the future.
Intelligence
No,
or
it
weapons.
said that I gave Ukraine permission to shoot missiles deep into.
You still believe that?
I think they want peace. I think they both want peace at this point. It's been, it's almost 4 years. You're going into 4 years. And if I were president, it never would have started. But yeah, it's time. But now we're totally prepared to do that. We'll probably go back to Congress and explain exactly what we're doing. Well, I think that in terms of honesty, the only thing I can say is every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere. They just don't go anywhere. So in that sense, but no, look, he's fighting a war. He's in a war. That's two very competent sides, and that's the way war is. You never know with war, but I would say that it's time to make a deal. A lot of people are dying. Zelensky will be reasonable too. It takes two to tango, as they say, and we're going to find out. They hate.
What the president is doing today with these sanctions is putting more pressure, of course, on both parties, in this case on Russia. It's all about changing the calculus, making sure that Putin understands that the president's vision this weekend of having a ceasefire, stop where they are, as you literally said, that this has to be step one now. And for him to really accept that vision and to come to the table. And then you have to put pressure, and this is exactly what he did today.
Fame, we call it. Biden is the worst president we've ever had. I always felt that way. I always felt he wanted to. When I was in my first term, I was I was very close to him, relatively speaking. It was harder because of the Russia hoax. But I would talk to President Putin about Ukraine, and it was the apple of his eye. I'd say it was the apple of his eye, but it would have never happened. He knew the consequences were too great. When we had a rigged election and all of a sudden I wasn't there, he said, wow. I think he looked at Afghanistan, how horribly that was handled, so stupidly. And I think that really gave him a little additional, incentive. I always felt he wanted the whole thing, not a piece of it. But I think now he's willing to negotiate a little bit further, and I think he's willing to make a deal. We'll see. We don't want him. We don't want him to have the whole thing.